Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Make sure and like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. The subscriptions do really help us out. Most people watching on YouTube do not actually subscribe. So subscribing helps the algorithm out. So make sure you do that for me, please, guys. It really helps get our message out there and helps grow the channel. Okay, so let's talk about 5 things that new shooters do that is kind of commonly an error for their guns, right? So what I'm talking about is I'm talking about 5 mistakes that conceal and carry weapon holders make when they're first starting. Okay, now the first one is they don't really understand the condition of their gun. And what I mean by that is some people seem to get really far into the safety rules, and don't get me wrong, that's a great way to err on the side of caution to make sure nothing ever happens. But when instead of saying that we treat all guns as if loaded, it's more like let's treat all guns in the condition that they are in, all right? So let's take, for example, we all say treat all guns that are as if they're loaded, but then again, nobody has a problem going to a gun show with guns laid out on the table pointed at everybody around. So we can't abide by that rule all the time. But what we can do is treat the guns in the condition that they're in and understand that when guns are kind of holstered or when they're in bags and stuff like that, they're kind of considered safe, right? Okay, so we understand that, and logically, again, everybody does it, whether you want to admit it or not. So understanding the condition of your gun, but one of the things that's one of the easiest ways to understand the condition of your gun is to actually teach these new shooters how to do a press check. And press checks are very simple, right? We just grab the front of our barrel, we do it, we slide the slide just slightly back, and if you're doing it when it's dark, you can slide it back far enough to put your finger in there and feel the round. Or feel for not having a round if you're carrying without with an empty chamber, which you shouldn't, but if you are, go nuts. And so actually just doing that quick press check is a very simple way to understand, yep, okay, loaded, set my gun down, point it in a safe direction, point it at the berm. Very easy to do. So when you do your press checks, make sure you're checking your magazines so that you understand, yep, I've topped off. I am at the condition that I thought I was in. Because we see it all the time here when people come to the range, is they come out to the range and maybe their gun's not actually in the condition that they thought it was in. They may have thought that it was loaded and they forgot that they unloaded it because they had kids coming over or whatever it was, whatever situation arose that they unloaded that gun. This happens actually fairly regularly. When I say regularly, I don't mean that it happens every 5 students. I mean that it does happen and that we see it on multiple occasions. And then I know that I've done it. And what I mean by that is that I have picked up my gun, done my press check, and thinking that I was going to find a bullet in there, and then been like, oh, I forgot. I unloaded it for X, Y, and Z reason, so the round's not in there anymore. I need to go ahead and reload. So that's why whenever the gun leaves our sight and leaves our physical contact, we go ahead, do that press check, make sure we got a round in the chamber, and we're good to go. Okay, so press checks are free. Anybody that says they build bad habits is stupid. They do not build bad habits. It's a retarded concept that they build bad habits. Yeah, sure, they build bad habits if you draw, and every time you draw, you do a press check, because then what will happen is you'll go to the range and you'll draw your gun like this, and you're like, oh crap, what am I doing? Because you've built that muscle memory. So, but if you're just using press checks the way that they're intended to check the condition, holster my gun, and then roll out with my mission for the day. That's what they're intended for. No harm in doing it. They are absolutely free, and they possibly could save your life one day because you don't want to be carrying a gun in a condition that you don't understand. It's one thing to train for an unloaded chamber and to carry that way and understand that the press check is there to make sure that the chamber is empty, but we don't want to think that we have a loaded chamber and not, or think that we don't have a loaded chamber and do, right? So that's the bigger issue. Maintaining your firearm. Okay, this is a common issue that we see on the range here. We see people that they have nice guns, or they have guns that are quality firearms, things like Glocks and Smith & Wessons and Sig Sauers and Wilson Combats, etc., right? I would say SIGs, Smith & Wessons, and Glocks are probably the most common we see here, but regardless, they have a decent quality firearm. And they show up with this decent quality firearm, and the gun has not been broken in. Okay, fine. You want to break it in during the class. I get it. You want to save on some ammo, but the problem is that you're paying for your time here. So that's a foolish mistake. Get your gun running well before you get here. Get it broken in before you get here. But more than that, we see a lot of guns that are really dry, and they're running so dry because people weren't actually ever taught to properly clean them or lubricate them. And we even see people all the time that kind of want want to brag about, oh man, I haven't cleaned this gun in 5,000 rounds. Okay, you're stupid. You know, I got it. Glocks will continue to operate. Most guns will, by the way. It's not just a Glock thing. Most guns will continue to operate. They will lose some of their reliability. Glocks tend to lose a little bit less than others. They tend to be a little bit more robust in the sense that you can, what is the old phrase, you can treat them like a lawnmower and they'll just keep kind of chugging along, and that's okay. That is what it is. But I don't advocate for people treating their guns like that, whether you have Glocks or not. Why would you treat something that you're going to depend on to save your life that way? And let me put it this way. If you were going into a knife fight, I'd want the sharpest damn knife I could possibly get, and I think that you would too. So we want to make sure that our guns are fully functional, always well maintained. That does not mean that we have to clean it every time we use it, but it does mean that we need to be maintaining our guns. We need to learn how to maintain that gun. Every gun is different. Some guns require more oil, some guns require less. They all pretty much require some. Some guns tend to use some certain oils better than others. Other guns don't care. Some guns tend to be more finicky with 115 grain ammo, so you want to stick with 147 or whatever it is. Make sure that you understand your gun, you understand the maintenance requirements, and how to keep that gun operational. I want to put this in the condition of a vehicle. If we think about a vehicle as our analogy, if I want to keep my vehicle running, I'm changing my oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. I'm rotating my tires. I'm changing my brakes. I'm doing all the maintenance that needs to be done at the recommended intervals. If I don't want my vehicle to make it that long, sure, run it dry and see how far it goes. But the simple fact is that if you will take care of your equipment will take care of you when you need it to. So this is one of the biggest issues that we see with people out here on the range is they will come out, they will get a class, and that is it. That is all that they will ever do. They will not actually take it seriously. So we recommend that people go to the range once a month. And actually, we're going to actually start a subscription program here for people to come out with an instructor once a month and actually get an hour or two of range time. And we're going to be starting that with some of our old students and giving them a chance to do that. So we recommend once a month that you come for a range day and come actually work on those skills. And then more than that, if you really want to get good, if you're serious about getting good with your pistol, you need to be doing some dry fire practice a couple times a week. So Mandolin and I are serious competitors, right? We compete a lot. We enjoy it. In order to do that, we have to dry fire practice a lot. And so we get very good with our pistols doing that dry fire practice, right? Dropping magazines, getting new ones in, just doing that drill over and over again. We did this for, I don't know, probably 30 minutes last night. We use a shot timer app that gives us a par time, right? So I know that I can do a tactical magazine change. So I'm taking this one out, dropping it in an empty pocket, pulling my new one up and seating it back on target. And I can do that in somewhere between about 2.2, 2.5 seconds in that range, and getting faster each time I practice it, right? Because that's the one that everybody hates to do is the tactical reload. So that's what I want you guys to work on. I want you guys to do that and sit there and do 10 minutes. Everybody can do 10 minutes 3 times a week. No matter how busy you are, you can do 10 minutes 3 times a week and focus on these fundamentals. Get that magazine change. Work on actually so you can unload your gun. One of the easiest ways to do this is actually just unload the firearm, and you can then dry fire practice aiming at a bedpost or something like that, obviously in a safe direction, someplace that you can keep that firearm in a safe condition. Get the ammo out of the room, but work on your draw. So draw from your appendix carry, draw it, aim, fire, and then shift to a different target. Shift over here, shift over here. Whatever it is that you need to do, focus on that dry fire. That dry fire is what will actually help you get good, because you can do a lot more dry fire than you can rail fire. You should be live firing as much as you possibly can, but it's simply not a reality for most people to go to the range. I'm blessed. I have a range at my house. That's awesome. And that's a unique situation that most people do not have that advantage of. So, but even having a range here, we still dry fire because it's cheaper. I don't have an unlimited budget, and I don't have unlimited time. So even if I had all the money in the world, I'd still be dry firing because I can't drive down here and set up a range scenario all the time. I need to have kind of a balance there, right? So getting that dry fire practice, make sure that you're hitting the range once a month, 1 professional class a year. That's the rule for conceal and carry shooters that really want to be serious with their firearm and actually want to maintain some level of training and accountability. 1 professional class a year, 1 range day a month, and I want you to do 2 to 3 dry fire practices, 10 to 15 minutes each, once a week, or 2 to 3 times a week. I'm sorry, 2 to 3 times a week, 10 to 15 minutes, dry fire. That's how you'll get good with your firearm. And you have a responsibility as somebody that wants to carry to do that. Guys, there are a ton of firearm brands out there, and it's growing. If you want to go buy an AR-15 lower receiver, you couldn't even count the amount of manufacturers that are out there now. Now you can buy 1911s. There are custom gun makers, growing. There are tons of them. You can buy polymer frame guns. You can buy Glock frames that are steel. You can buy all this different stuff. With modern technology, CNC machines and 3D printers, it is just mind-blowing how many manufacturers are out there now. So in order to be sure that you're getting a quality gun, you have to look at the reputation of the gun. Has it been tested in combat? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy it if it hasn't. Shadow systems had not been, up until recently, been used in police departments and had not been tested in the field very well, other than for competition shooters and people that are firearms enthusiasts that like to train and that were getting out and doing it, but there was no real data on it. Now we're starting to see those enter into police departments, and so we're starting to see, like, hey, these are pretty nice guns. They work well. They're fairly time tested now. They're getting a little bit of a reputation. Granted, they've only been open, since 2016, so it's just not that long. It's not like a 1911 that's been around for over 100 years. It's not like a Glock that's been here since the 80s. It's not like H&K that God knows how long they've been here. So the simple fact is that you have to look at quality firearms. The way to find quality firearms, the easiest way, truthfully, if you actually will go to a local competition, something like IDPA, USPSA, Steel Challenge, and see what people are shooting at those, obviously in an appropriate caliber, so you want to look at 9mm or above. But if you look at what people are shooting, that'll give you a really good indication about what brands are quality, because you will see obscure brands hit the market in competition, and then you'll see them take off. Like, that's kind of what happened to Staccato, right? Staccato really started hitting the market in competition, and everybody's like, oh my God, 2011 double stack 9mm, I'm in. And they started going freaking crazy for it. So Staccato's a great gun. Staccatos run like a champ, and they're really, really nice shooting guns. So I was actually, when I was looking at this Wilson Combat, it was between the Wilson Combat and the Staccato. So anyways, the simple fact is that there's a lot of really good guns out there. It's no longer the days where if you wanted reliability, you had to just get Glock, right, or a revolver. You have a lot of options now. You have a lot of capabilities out there for you. There are a lot of good quality striker fire guns out there. Look around, go to the competitions, and see what people are running and see what people are using. And just because it's not used there also doesn't mean that it's not an appropriate gun. I don't see a lot of shadow systems at competitions. I only see a couple every time I'm messoing some of these bigger matches, and but they're still a really good quality firearm. What I do see is I see a lot of Smith & Wessons. I see a lot of Glocks. I see a lot of different 2011 pistols like Staccatos, like Wilsons and stuff like that. We see obviously a lot of 1911s, mostly custom. A lot of people that get into competition will really spend some money on 1911s. You will see some lower end ones, but you really do see a lot of higher end ones. Lower end ones are usually tuned by a gunsmith before they bring them to a competition. So even if it's something like a standard kind of Springfield model 1911, they usually will send them out to a custom gunsmith and spend another $1,000 on them and get them tuned. So there's certainly a level there that gives you kind of an idea of this is a quality product. This is something that we really should be looking seriously at getting for our personal protection, self-defense, and just general enjoyment on the range. If you ever have questions, you can go to our website, so timberlinesecurity-solutions.com. We do have a page on there, or a blog on there. I'll try to post it in the description. That actually goes over a list of different firearm manufacturers that make decent quality versus mid-quality versus low quality. There's basically 3 different categories when you're looking at quality of pistols. There are high quality pistols, right? So this is Wilson Combats. This is Staccatos. As much as a lot of the guys that hate Glocks will hate me for putting it on there, Glocks are on that high quality pistol list. Are they as refined and as nice as those other ones? No, absolutely not. You can't compare a Glock to a Wilson Combat or a Staccato. It's not near as refined a pistol, but they're certainly reliable. They're certainly accurate, and they're certainly prolific on the market, so you can't deny that it's a high quality pistol. Smith & Wesson I put in the next category down. Why? Is it because Smith & Wesson MMPs are garbage? No, Smith & Wesson MMP is a great gun, and it is absolutely on par with Glock. Here's the issue with Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson makes lots of different models. Glock makes basically one model that they adapt to a bunch of different calibers and a bunch of different sizes, but the internals are all the same. Smith & Wesson makes lots of different models, has lots of different patents, lots of different designs, and what ends up happening is they end up having a bad one. So when that happens, that's the nature of business. You have to realize that, okay, these ones in this center category, there may be some bad ones on that list. You can't hardly find a bad Glock model. You can't hardly find a bad Wilson Combat model. You can't hardly find a bad Staccato model. The list goes on with companies that build really good stuff and really take the time to test it. When you start getting to these larger companies that really mass produce a lot of stuff, sometimes they have bad ideas, and that's just part of the nature of the beast. It doesn't mean that Smith & Wessons are a bad company or that they're lower than Glocks by any means. It just means that in that second category, we got to be a little bit more careful, and we got to look at them and we got to say, is this one of those models that was on that list? Or is this a solid model? Is this the Smith & Wesson M&P, or is this the Smith & Wesson CSX, right? There's a huge difference in the quality of those two guns. Okay, now we move on to the third category. The third category are the guns that you should stay away from. Those are never good guns for self-defense. I'm going to piss a lot of people off here. And the people I'm going to piss off are probably the people that are not getting out training. I know they usually tout themselves as firearm instructors because they got their NRA basic cert like 20 years ago. But the simple fact is these guys are not quality firearms instructors, and nobody actually takes them seriously in this industry. So those are the people that are going to get mad at this. Everybody else will be fine. Okay, so a couple guns that are on that list of the third tier guns that you should never use for self-defense and that are not adequate guns and not quality firearms. Kel-Tec. Again, Kel-Tec has great ideas and great innovation, but they do not build a quality firearm. They are not combat efficient weapons. They are not combat oriented weapons. Like guns like the SCCY, right? Sky. They're terrible, terrible firearms. They're low quality. They are notoriously piss poor designs. Right, and even if, like the ergonomics, sometimes actually feel really good on them, but they are very, very poor quality guns. Do not buy guns like that unless you just want things to play with. Things like high points and stuff like that are just crap guns. Most Tauruses will fall into that category, and I know a lot of guys really get upset when I put Tauruses in that category. And I hate to put Taurus in that category because Taurus is actually a really big sponsor of like IDPA competitions and stuff like that. In fact, I just went to the Sheepdog Championship that they were a huge sponsor at, and they donated a lot of guns, and so I support Taurus as a company because they're very supportive of the firearms industry, but I do not find that they make very good quality firearms. And a lot of people will hate me on this, and that's okay. You can be mad at me. I've got plenty of them here that don't work. That's all I can say on the subject. I've got a lot of Tauruses that have not worked. We've had a lot out here on the range, have a lot of problems with them. They just simply do not make a very good quality firearm. Now, that's not including the revolvers. We're really talking about semi-automatic pistols here. But they're hopefully pulling out of that and maybe trying to work on a little bit of rebranding and maybe trying to get their quality up. But they've got a long way to go to get there. So I would just, at the current time, that's a gun that I would shy away from. I think they're actually making strides towards some really good progress with some striker-fired pistols, and maybe we'll start seeing some quality stuff come out over the next 5 or 10 years. I would really like to see that because I think Taurus as a company is actually a very good company. So that's my 2 cents on the quality of the firearm. I think that we have one more thing to talk about, and that is poor quality holsters and belts. So you can see I took off my holsters because it was digging into me a little bit. Holsters holsters are kind of a hard thing to screw up in the sense that Kydex holsters tend to all kind of be somewhat the same as far as the quality, except for their design is what differs, right? So the quality of the Kydex is not that different from one Kydex holster to another. You'll hear people talk about, well, this one's injection molded and this one's formed. I mean, I've had some Kydex break, but the Kydex that I've had break has been like good brands like Crossbreed. I've never had like those cheap like $30 holsters you buy on Amazon that are no-name brands actually break on me. So Kydex, don't worry so much about that. Really what you're looking at is you're looking at the holster quality of the design. A design that is well balanced. So this is a legacy holster. So the legacy holster is actually very well designed in that the weight of the gun rides really well, and so it balances on this one hook. If you have a gun where this hook is not placed very well, they tend to cant like this or like this, and then you have to use the bigger, fatter hooks, or you have to use double hooks. This is a lot easier to get on and off and a lot simpler, and so that's what we really want to look at. That's why we buy quality brands, because quality brands will test theirs and they'll say, hey, we need to move that hole like maybe an 1/8 inch over because it's not balancing the gun right. The gun twists in its pocket, right? So this is one of the problems with like the We the People holsters. We the People is a great brand, but some of their holsters are not tested enough and not balanced right, and they use, in my opinion, they use the wrong type of clip. I don't understand why anybody would use a clip that's not tuckable in modern day, because then I can use the same holster for everything. So all holsters should have tuckable clips. Fight me. The last thing that we want to look at on these holsters is we want to make sure that we're looking at these clips on here to make sure that that clip actually will grab onto our belt and hold onto it. We want to be careful. Certain brands like Tennecore makes really good quality holsters, really good quality clips. In fact, their clips are so stiff and such good quality, they're actually really hard to get on and off. And so it became a little bit of a hassle. So again, I'm not discouraging you from Tennecore. I think, again, Tennecore is a really good quality brand, but that was my personal issue with them. This Legacy holster is probably one of my favorite as far as kind of mass-produced brands, right? Legacy makes some really good stuff. I've been really happy with this, and it fit really well. But you want to look at quality. Now, I went from a leather holster with this Wilson because a leather holster was the only thing that was available. I hadn't worn a leather holster in like 15 years, but I've got a leather holster for this, and I was wearing this inside the waistband leather holster until this Legacy one arrived. That inside the waistband one, as soon as I put this Kydex one on, I was like, just a sigh of relief just filtered over me because that Legacy one was so much more comfortable. Kydex tends to be a little bit more comfortable, but really the quality of the holster is what matters. Now, some people like leather and they say that leather is more comfortable because it forms around them, and that's fine, but leather tends to not hold it as well, and they get loose as they get broken in and everything, and so they almost tend to rub a little bit more. So I find leather less comfortable than I do Kydex. That's a subjective call. It's up to you. But the simple fact is you want to make sure that you're buying really good quality holsters and good quality belts. A quality gun belt is very stiff and will allow the gun to rest around your hips instead of in one spot. So instead of the gun wanting to pull on your hips and push into your groin or your hip or wherever, a quality gun belt will actually hold it stiff in place, but then distribute the weight across your belt and across your waistline. And so it ends up becoming a lot more comfortable. So do not use department store belts. Don't use Grandpa's old leather belt or the one that Grandpa used to carry a gun on because it's nostalgic to you. Buy a good quality gun belt. I have several. Beltman makes some really good ones. Precision Holsters make some really good ones. I've been a little upset with Precision Holsters customer service here lately, but they do make some really good belts and some really good holsters. So definitely check them out. Now, that's really the final thing I want to talk about, guys, is the gear on that. Make sure you're getting good quality holsters and good quality belts. Make sure you're buying quality firearms. Make sure you understand the condition of those firearms. Make sure you're actually getting out and practicing and using that firearm. I'm going to let you guys go with that. This video ran a little bit longer than I wanted it to. I really appreciate y'all watching. Make sure and like and subscribe to the channel if you